focus on the impact of not only that person, but like the business as a whole, and each person evolves. Like you're selling to that one person, but now how does your product, how does your service impact the entire business, and what other people in that business does that impact from either a revenue standpoint or even a time standpoint? Like how does that affect their actual life?
You are listening to The Deal Breakdown with Derek Chevy, where we spotlight the best deals out there in B2B sales, from the open all the way to the close. Welcome to the B2B Deal Breakdown podcast, where we give you the play-by-play on some of the best deals out there. I'm Derek Chevy, and I'm excited to be meeting with Brian Hamor. He's a VP of sales in the software industry. Welcome, Brian.
Glad to be here.
Well, everyone, Brian is an account executive at StorySlab. He's also a co-founder and VP of sales of PlayEasy.com. But my favorite is he's coached and mentored over 200 youth basketball players. So there's a lot of wisdom I know we're going to get today. But let's start off with the first question, Brian. Could you tell the listeners a little bit about your background?
Yeah. So even before the job world, played basketball overseas for a few years. That's where we saw me mentoring 200 kids. I played in Belfast in Northern Ireland, played a year in Spain, came back and started my B2B sales career. Started with my dad's company. I was an energy broker, which was one of the most boring things I've ever done. So I told my dad, "Hey Dad, I can't follow in these footsteps. I'm sorry." Went to medical sales, and from medical sales, I took the leap to start PlayEasy with some fellow BC grads. We all played sports and decided to go on that venture. PlayEasy is a B2B marketplace that connects event organizers. So people that are looking to host sporting tournaments, sporting camps, and they need to find a host for those events. So it could be private sports complexes, private schools, CVBs, which is a convention and visitors bureau. Well, we don't have to get too deep into that, but those are basically the three targets. We help people find those spaces. And then now with COVID going on, I am now an account executive with StorySlab, which StorySlab is a sales tool that makes it easier to sell remote through video calls just like this.
Nice. Very cool. How many years total in B2B then?
5 years total.
5 years.
Yeah, a lot in 5 years.
Yeah, it is a long 5 years. Yeah, as you can see with my gray hair, I've only been in it for 2 years. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, with StorySlab, and I know I probably have to talk to you about that more later because it sounds like it can help, especially during this COVID time and the pandemic. I actually want to get into this PlayEasy.com. With that specific idea, what challenges were you hoping to solve? And I guess from your standpoint, what were you experiencing when you were trying to, schedule these events with a sport?
Yeah. So I had a basketball background, and I would always coaching kids, and you mentioned me mentoring those 200 kids, and I would go try to find a place to host it. So I'd contact private schools. I'd Google basketball courts, Boston, and it would take about 20 calls. You didn't know who to contact. They'd put you over to someone else. The paperwork, the insurance, the whole process just to get a court for 2 hours took about a month. So myself and these BC grads, they played football. They're experiencing the same thing in their sport. We basically were like, there's got to be a better way. Blockbuster's gone because I can get a movie in 2 seconds on Netflix. You get a book on Amazon in 2 days. Like, why can't I get a court for 2 hours? And why does that process take a month?
Wow. Well, it makes a lot of sense, because, when I think about, I guess, in general, we've had to have, the first birthday that we had for my son, just trying to get a park reserved for an area for us to have the birthday party. It did take a while. And I guess some of those things you take for granted about how do people even get this stuff done? And I imagine it's going to be a lot more challenging when you have a big event that you're trying to host, for a sport. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. So right now with StorySlab, then, what challenges does that specifically solve, for that industry?
Yeah, with COVID, a lot of the sales teams that were used to be outside selling now face-to-face, now they face the hardships of going remote and having to sell through Zoom. So they used to use all these papers or presentations. Now they don't have these forms to present and feel more like a face-to-face call. So StorySlab takes all those sales collateral, that material, brands it under your company, and now you can launch it into a presentation, and it feels more like a face-to-face conversation.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, I bet you guys are doing great during this time frame then. So this deal that you're talking about, is it going to be from Story Slab or is it going to be from another company?
It's going to be from Play Easy.
Oh, great. Okay. So tell me more about this particular deal. Though, how'd you choose this one from Play Easy?
Yeah, I chose this one because it was the first one. And I just want to talk about this one because going from idea, concept to now your minimal viable product and software to the first deal, it's a long process, a lot of intricacies involved. So I thought it'd be a good deal to share.
Sounds like a great deal to share. I mean, there's a lot of people starting businesses right now in general, which is crazy in general during the pandemic. But I'm sure there's some things that they can learn from what you did. So, what size deal? Since it's the first deal, I guess the size is an interesting question here. But what size deal are we talking about for you?
Yeah, so this deal is about 15,000 AR.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's huge. That's a very substantial deal. So, how did you start? I guess this being your first deal, how did you start saying where am I going to contact and how am I going to qualify, know which accounts to go after? And I know you had to have been building a CRM or building a database of accounts. How'd you find this account that you eventually closed for the first deal?
Yeah. So as you can imagine, starting a company, you don't have anyone giving you a whole Excel sheet of leads. You don't have all these CRM and prospecting people to prospect right in front of you. So first thing we did with being a B2B marketplace was really focus in the Boston area. And for these specific accounts, we looked up private schools that had these spaces that were underutilized, made a list of them and started reaching out to them.
Okay. So let's pause there because you make it sound so easy, right? I mean, you're in Boston, so I guess you kept it simple, right? So that stay local.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then it sounds like you looked at you said you knew that there were places that weren't being utilized, all these different schools. So how did you know that they weren't being utilized? Was it just assumption or did you know by some way?
Yeah, just going off our background of playing sports, there's all like private schools and whatever complexes, they have these leagues and everything, but there's hours that need to be filled. And for a private school, they think about using their courts and their fields and their rinks for the school. But now they didn't realize that there's a huge opportunity for auxiliary revenue to bring in outside money that can now be a separate business in itself. So we wanted to focus on those private schools that now we're looking forward to driving that revenue through the rentals.
Nice. Okay. Great. So then you found some private schools. You found this private school specifically. Mm-hmm. And how did you start prospecting to them?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I did, I don't remember correctly, but I think it was an email I sent, and the email I sent was very customized to the pain that basically I went through from a renter. And I was basically asking him, hey, Ryan, like I know I saw on your website, you guys are renting, curious to see what that process looks like in your end. We're in the middle of developing a software to make this process easier. Very simple to the point, just a question to ask to see if what they're using. So I could dive deeper and get that response from him.
And was that same email customized to all the other opportunities that you had too as well?
Yeah, it was customized. I personalized every single one because at this time I wanted to search their website. We were small, so we had to really get these conversations. It wasn't a volume game at this point. At this point, it was very about personalization, going to the website, understanding each one of these, especially as a new business. It's not really about volume. It's about understanding the intricacies of each account. So now we can figure out where their pain is. So now we can bring that pain and put it in the software to solve it.
Interesting. So was this the athletic director that you're reaching out to in these places?
It's actually the head of auxiliary. Yep. So they're like kind of siloed from the rest of the school in a sense. Like they run the summer camps. They're in charge of the rentals. They're in charge of their own little mini business and now bring other revenue to the school outside of for private school tuition and other revenue drivers.
Interesting. I didn't even know about the head of auxiliary.
I know. Neither do we.
So Ryan gets back to you. So this guy gets back to you, and was it just yes, let's meet, or was there some more you had to do to set the appointment?
Yeah, I focused on him because he came back with enthusiastic, like, yeah, we rent, and like, he was really intrigued because the goal of that first email was really pique curiosity. He got back and was like, yes, like, when do you want to talk? And we scheduled a call the next day. And we really just talked about our story and how we couldn't find a place. And then
Is this the call? Is this the first, would you consider this the first appointment, or is this still a prospecting touch with them?
Oh no, this is the first call, which is literally the next day on a phone.
So would this in a typical sales cycle be considered the first discovery meeting? Or was this still, you're still trying to set an appointment with him over the phone?
It's a discovery meeting, but it's tough because as a startup, when you're an MVP, a minimal viable product,
Yeah.
you're not selling it. You're launching something that for people to look at and think about as like the skeleton. And now I'm learning his problems to understand, like, okay, if this private school has these problems, and now I'm talking to these other accounts and they're having these same problems. Now, from a business standpoint, can our software solve these problems to now make a business model to now drive revenue for us? So at this point, technically, yes, it's a discovery call, but it's really testing the market to see where those pain points are, to see if we can add to our software and find it.
Okay, got it. So tell me about this call then that you had, more about like what sort of questions were you asking him, and what sort of challenges was he facing, things like that.
Yeah, so I really want to understand him first, because as a person, before you even talk about the business, the thing you're looking for as a startup is this person a forward-thinking person? Because you need people that look at a startup as an opportunity and small business as an opportunity, not as like, oh, I don't want to be first. Because you have laggards too. You want people like, hey, do you have other accounts like me? Do you have case studies like me? For a startup, that's not who you're looking for. So first, I wanted to understand him. So I was asking questions like, why did you get involved in auxiliary? How did you get here? What's your story? Like, do you love doing this? Do you have a growth mindset? Are you looking to grow auxiliary? Or are you trying to make your life easier? So from a personal standpoint, I wanted to understand that first. And then I could move on to the intricacies of his business and understand, like, okay, so from how do you find new renters? How do these people contact you? What are they saying? What do those contracts look like? What are the signatures? Now, when they book it, how are they paying you? So understanding from basically the beginning of that rental process to the end, and understanding every single touch point he has to see if we can now take that from point A to point B and way faster than he's doing now.
There's so many great questions that you asked in there, and it makes a lot of sense overall. This was the first deal. So I imagine that those questions that you mentioned right there have been refined over all these deals you guys have created for this company. But how did you prepare for that first touch, that first actual discovery meeting?
Yeah, we got lucky because one of my co-founders' mom is actually an athletic director. So just picking her brain about her experience with rentals at that school, she gave us some of the things they're using, some of their day-to-day. So we took that, made these questions, formed them to basically keep them open-ended. So let the person talk and really understand one, how they think, and then two, how they run that business and how they think about that business.
Interesting. And then what were you hoping the next step would be?
The next step there, and this is a long process from idea to now building this out, because What I did there was I took that information and then I took what kind of person he was first. Because like I said, that is the most important thing, because the business, you can solve the pain, but that's going to come later. But you need a person that's going to join, basically end up being your teammate, because you need them to come through with you from beginning. You need to have touch points with them every 3 weeks, because now every 3 weeks you need to reach back like, hey, as a team, we're thinking about this. Is this also a problem? Or we're hearing this from another account. Is this a problem? Because if you're building a software to solve one person's issue, you don't have a business. We need to solve a mass issue with these schools. So we're taking all this feedback from all these schools, writing down these personality types, and then understanding, okay, who are the people that we talk to that are more forward thinking? Who do you think would join our team? So now we can reach out and have that relationship that goes beyond just selling to them, but they really need to be an extension of us. Because when you're a startup and you're building this out, like I said, you need forward thinkers. You can't have laggards that are slow and they want other people to join first. You need the people to be the first on the train.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I personally haven't had experience with this. So this meeting, back to this first discovery meeting, this meeting ends with him being on board, but like, what is that? Like, what would you say what was the win? Are you saying that he agreed to work with you guys and help you by being on the team, or help giving you feedback, or what was that goal that you were looking for from that meeting?
Yeah. The goal I was looking for that meeting was to say, hey, like, is this something that's an issue for you? Are you looking to grow the business, and are you looking to basically become a teammate of ours? So now we can reach out when we have questions, one-off questions at what we're thinking about, and be an extension of our team. And that's how we closed it. There was no deal to close at this moment in time. There's no money to get. There was no proposal to send out at this specific time. It was really like, hey, are you going to be on this with us to now drive this? So now over these next months, when we reach out, are you going to help us basically understand this business so we can help you?
So you guys are still shelling out the product at the same time.
Right.
You're still building it. Now,
Exactly.
man, it's like I've always come from the other side where the product's done and you're selling that, right? And so you're coming in saying you have an idea, very like I know you keep saying idea to to the end of it,
Yeah.
but you have an idea and you think it makes sense, and you're getting more people that are on board saying, yeah, you're on the right track, and I'll help you to get to the next level. So interesting. So then what was the next step at this point? Like, when was your next interaction? How much time is transpiring?
Yeah. So then we broke it down into sections. So I remember the first thing I talked about was, okay, how do you find these renters? And he was like, well, they come to me. So, okay, that was one thing. Can our software help the facility find other renters through us? Can we make a software that they can get new people, which is new money? That was step one. And then step two from a software standpoint was, okay, after you contact them, what does that process look like? Which is now the contract process. So that was step two was, okay, can we build a software to now digitalize that contract process with e-signature? Then three, if you have this sheet of all these renters, how do you manage that? Is that through Excel? Like, what are you using? So now it's like, okay, can we make a mini CRM for these schools that can now get new revenue with renters, make that contract process really easy with e-signature? And then three, can we organize those renters and make that whole process streamlined? So over the next touch I had with him was 3 weeks later, asking him, and this is really specific questions like, okay, on this contract, you need this. What sports do you rent out for? What spaces do you rent out? Like, how do you guys market? And after we understand these, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, because after it takes time to build this stuff too. So you're getting this feedback, and then you're making sure the rest of the market gets it. And now when you're building this product, it's now going back and saying, this is what we built. Now, can we get a test run? And that was really the next step, was a test run of him getting on there, using it, and then giving him a test like, hey, I'm a renter. I just found you. Can you go through it and let's watch you?
Interesting. So this was all in the matter of weeks, or was this months later?
It's about 3 months later.
Okay. Okay. Got it. And very interesting. So then he tests it out. And at this point, were there any challenges that he found? Were there any hiccups along the way there?
Yeah, there's little software hiccups on the way. Like this contract wouldn't go through. There were some buttons that weren't working. He was like, oh, we like to do this. So that was part of it. It's like, okay, if we need to now go back to the discovery and now add some of these questions to the discovery for new targets, because now we need his problems to match others, which helped us now refine the sales process, because starting a company, you're always refining that process as well. So we went in with those discovery questions, and now we're adding new questions as we go. So he basically was like, okay, this isn't working. This isn't working for my process because of X. And now we had to basically go back and add that.
Nice. This is great. This is like a masterclass for anyone trying to start their own company, taking it from idea to execution. So at this point, then you do what he asked, you improve the edits. And was there a final demo that you give him?
Yeah. So after this, we added those edits. And then what happened there was like, okay, who else is involved in this process? Because now we solved like his issue. But now in our auxiliary department, you still have the CFO, you still have operations people. So now understanding, okay, what impact does that not only help you, but the rest of the school as well? So now we got the next step was get the CFO involved, give a demo to understand, okay, how do you track money? What do you need for an auxiliary director to now give you so you can track this from the school? Getting her involved. And then after that process came, built one more thing in the software. And we built that in the software, met back with them, got that checked out. And that's kind of when we started really thinking we had a product that was coming together.
Awesome. So now I imagine the next step was a proposal, right?
Yes.
So how did you guys come up with that?
Yeah. So as you said, it started blank piece of paper there. And we know that he was in charge of auxiliary, but that proposal is going to get shown to the CFO, is going to get shown to the president of the school. And with no credibility behind us at this time, we had to really show that, hey, we're going to achieve better customer service. We're going to be there to listen to what you guys need. And we've been here since the beginning working with you specifically. So we're solving this specific problem that we heard from you. So this proposal was very tailored. It was literally just like, okay, you're going to get this functionality for a year. And during this year, we had to basically give an open box of they're giving us feedback. So they're going to be getting these improvements for free if we can now leverage their contacts and now go to other institutions just like them, which was kind of like a referral deal between us.
Nice. That's great. And so you present this proposal and they might say something like, well, what if you guys aren't around in a year? Things like that. I imagine they're thinking about that. Tell me about the objections that you received in those meetings, or even how you prepared for those objections, considering you guys just came up with this stuff on the spot and they're thinking, how do we know these guys are, credible, even though this isn't just like a for fun project?
Right. No, 100%. And we were lucky enough that there was no platform that was dedicated to the actual rental process. So when they were giving objections, the real question is like, okay, without us, what would you do? Basically, you said your goals were to grow your rentals. You said your goals were to be more efficient. You said your goals were to now get your revenue from A to B. So if you didn't use us, how would you guys proceed to do that? And luckily enough, we don't have competitors in terms of the actual rental market for private schools. So now them being able to say, well, it's worth a shot. So that's really all you can ask for in a startup is like, you need someone to give you a shot. So now you can now leverage that with other customers.
Nice. So did you close it at this meeting, or was there next steps from that meeting?
Yeah. So there was one more step, and that last step was meet with the auxiliary department, get the CFO involved. Last step was we came to the proposal table with the president. So now it's president, CFO, auxiliary, and because he needed to get that check mark, especially as you mentioned, being a startup. Luckily, we were local. We sold the vision, sold what we were trying to do. They had empathy for what we were trying to do, and they really believed that we were solving that problem. And after checking off all those boxes and making them feel at ease in terms of the direction we were going, that's when they decided to go with us.
Awesome. Now, was it right away? Did you have to create urgency in any manner?
I think that urgency was created over the last year of reaching out to them, understanding them specifically. So this was, and I'm compared to other deals, this was hyper focused. So this was like the beginning was the most important in terms of like, are you going to join our team and work with us to find the solution, which is crucial in a startup. Like you need that at a startup. You need someone to join your team. Whereas if you're an individual contributor, obviously it's a volume game. You're hyper prospecting. You're not going to be able to have the time to now understand this person's problems at this deep of a level. So at the beginning, we were really searching for the person first, and then a business that matched that person's personality, and then be able to take that ride with them from concept now to conclusion, and then be able to leverage that with other customers.
Wow. I mean, it seems to me like those are really your keys to victory. Those three things you just mentioned. I imagine there's so many things you learned in this first deal. What are some of the biggest ones that you look back on the first deal you closed at this startup that have stuck with you?
Yeah, I think from a startup perspective, I think this is probably cliche, but just you can't be afraid to fail. I mean, at a startup, everyone has ideas. You're brand new, so when it comes to these deals, like you just got to move fast and fail fast. Because if you're taking 3 weeks to make a decision or 3 weeks to work with a customer, that's 3 weeks gone. If you're gonna just do that decision and see if it works, and then pivot if you need to, or if it works, it works. Yeah,
that's so true. Now, what about from a straight up deal standpoint? Are there things that you learned about sales from doing this first deal?
Yeah, I think people first. I think if you're understanding the person first, then they're going to open up about their business, because now from a sales perspective, they understand why you're there. They understand your intentions. And then if people understand your intentions and that you're actually there to help, now they start opening up about actual business problems, and they start really giving you the in-depth problems that they're having, not just the one-word answers, the long answers, the ones that actually matter to actually closing the business.
Yeah. I'm curious, how many touches do you think you did with this client before you booked them in, before you finally booked this deal?
I'll literally say 40 to 50. I mean, this is like I said, this is the teammate. So this is calls after these actual set meetings. This is check-ins, this is calls, this is now saying, what do you think about this? And I think that's why I wanted to bring this deal, is like, it's unique in terms of this isn't like an individual contributor role. This is really like selling a story and a vision, and then finding someone to really get onto that vision and believe in it, which is hard, because you really got to find someone that's forward thinking and willing to hop on that and take their own time, but they get nothing out of it. and it's a big risk for them. What if it, like you said, what if it doesn't work out in that year and they just took all this time to now meet with you? It's a huge risk for them too. So it takes a really unique person to now join.
Yeah. I'm curious, how are they doing now with the service that you made?
Well, they did great until COVID hit because the event business took a hit there. So now without the big groups, it took a hit. But using our product, I mean, they're still using it. It's just obviously they're just using it more internally for now. But you're going to use it right post COVID. So when those events come back, they'll be using Plazy.
Yeah. Did you ever use them as a reference, like a referral for people to contact?
Always. In the education world, one person starts using it, they all do, which we knew how important it was to really get that first one under us. That's why that one is super important. Yeah,
such a really cool deal, Brian. I know, there's so much wisdom that you gave throughout, but if you were to sum everything up as, for the wisdom for the people that are out there fighting for the first sale for their company, right? For maybe the first sale on an idea, or in general, any advice for salespeople, what would you give them?
Yeah, I think the main thing is focus on impact. So wherever it is, focus on the impact of not only that person, but like the business as a whole, and each person evolves. So like you're selling to that one person, but now how does your product, how does your service impact the entire business, and what other people in that business does that impact from either a revenue standpoint or even a time standpoint? Like how does that affect their actual life? Because if you can help them understand that, then you're going to help move those deals forward. Awesome. Man, this is such a great deal. I want to ask if people want to reach out to you further, Brian, what's the best way? Yeah, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Brian Hamor, Brian with an I, Hamor. And then you can also email me at brianhamor@hey.com. Great. Well, hey, thanks so much for being on the show, Brian. This deal is going to help a lot of people. Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Well, that's it for today's session, everyone. Thank you so much, Brian, for helping all of our fellow B2B salespeople out there improve their sales skills. Now, for our listeners, if you like today's highlights, be sure to check out our summary on modernSalesTraining.com. Have a great sales week, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Hey, did you know I just finished a new course? It's called Virtual Selling Machine. I'm pretty proud of it because it will help you dominate the B2B sales world working from home. I go over everything from building your digital brand online to understanding how to best tailor your message to your customers, prospecting from home, running effective meetings over Zoom, doing amazing demos over webinar, and more. It's all packed into a 4-hour course, but I want to hook you up with 1 hour of it for free, no strings attached. Just go to www.modernSalesTraining.com/free. That's www.modernSalesTraining.com/free. Go check it out now and become a virtual selling machine.